Hello everyone. Today, I'm back with another video titled, They Held Their Engagement Ceremony at a Veterinary Clinic, and the Shocking Truth. Please support me so I can create more meaningful and inspiring videos for you. Angelina pulled her car to a stop along the roadside, where a small animal shelter nestled quietly beneath the shade of tall trees. It had been over 2 months since she read an article about elderly dogs abandoned by their owners. The heartbreaking story lingered in her mind, nudging her to take a step she had long contemplated, adopting a dog, not just to give it a home, but to fill the void in her own life. As she stepped into the shelter, the air buzzed with the lively sounds of barking. Some dogs jumped excitedly against the fences, their tails wagging frantically in hopes of attention. Others barked loudly, determined to make their presence known. Yet, Angelina's gaze was drawn to a quiet corner. There, lying still and calm, was a Border Collie. Its eyes, deep and soulful, locked onto hers. They weren't sad, nor were they pleading. They carried a quiet strength and an unfathomable melancholy, as if holding a story too long untold. "That's June," the shelter worker said, noticing her focus. "He's an older one, over 10 years old. Been here for nearly a year. People usually pass over the older dogs, they want the younger ones." Angelina knelt down, her hand gently brushing against June's soft, thick fur. He didn't flinch or move away, instead lowering his head slightly to rest against her hand. It was a gesture so tender and full of trust that it made her heart ache. "I'll take him," she said without hesitation. There was no doubt in her mind. From the moment June entered her life, Angelina's world began to transform. She had initially thought she was rescuing him, but soon realized it was he who was rescuing her. The bond they shared grew with every passing day, each interaction revealing just how extraordinary he was. June was no ordinary dog. His intelligence went beyond following commands. He seemed to understand her in ways no one else ever had. When Angelina worked long hours at her desk, June would lie quietly at her feet, a comforting presence that eased her stress. When she felt overwhelmed or lonely, he would rest his head on her lap, his eyes gazing up at her as if saying, "I'm here." His silent companionship became her anchor, a reminder that she wasn't truly alone. Angelina often found herself talking to June, sharing thoughts she'd never expressed aloud before. She told him about her struggles at work, her fears, and her dreams. It wasn't just the comfort of speaking to someone who couldn't judge her, it was the way June listened, his head tilted slightly, as if he understood every word. One evening, as they sat together on the porch, Angelina looked at him and whispered, "You know, you've changed my life, June. I thought I was giving you a second chance, but it turns out, you're the one giving me mine." Angelina's love for June was unlike anything she had ever experienced. It was pure and selfless, untainted by expectation or demand. She cherished every moment with him, aware of his age and the years he had left. This knowledge didn't sadden her, instead, it made her determined to make each day special. She often thought about the life June must have had before arriving at the shelter. Who had loved him? Had he been abandoned, or had circumstances forced his previous owner to let him go? The thought of him ever feeling unloved broke her heart. She vowed to ensure he would never feel that way again. Every morning, she woke up to his wagging tail and bright eyes, a daily reminder of the joy he brought into her life. On weekends, they went on long walks in the park, where June would lead her to his favorite spots, a patch of wildflowers by the lake, or a shady tree, where they would sit and watch the world go by. These moments, simple yet profound, became the highlights of her week. Angelina began to notice how June seemed to sense her moods, adapting his behavior accordingly. On days when she was cheerful, he would playfully nudge her with his nose, inviting her to toss a ball or run with him. On darker days, he stayed close, his presence a silent comfort. One particularly difficult evening, after a stressful day at work, Angelina broke down in tears. She sat on the floor, her head in her hands, overwhelmed by the weight of it all. June approached her slowly, resting his head on her shoulder. His warmth and the soft sound of his breathing soothed her like nothing else could. She wrapped her arms around him, burying her face in his fur. In that moment, she realized just how deeply she needed him, and how deeply she loved him. As the months passed, Angelina became acutely aware of the fleeting nature of their time together. June was an older dog, and though he was still healthy and active, she knew the inevitable truth that one day they would have to part. This thought didn't fill her with dread but with gratitude. It made her cherish every wag of his tail, every quiet moment they shared. Angelina went out of her way to create joyful experiences for June. She took him on car rides to the countryside, where he could run freely across open fields. She cooked special meals for him, indulging him with treats that made his eyes light up. Every act of love she gave to him felt like a small repayment for the immense joy and peace he had brought into her life. June never demanded attention or affection, but his quiet loyalty spoke volumes. He was there for her, always, without fail. It was a love that didn't need words, a mutual understanding that transcended language. Angelina often marveled at how one being could bring so much light into her life without ever saying a single word. June's presence was a reminder of what it meant to love without conditions. He didn't care about her flaws or mistakes, he loved her simply because she was his person. And for Angelina, loving June was the easiest thing in the world. As she sat beside him one evening, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and pink, she placed a hand on his back, feeling the steady rise and fall of his breathing. "You're the best thing that's ever happened to me, June," she said softly. And in his quiet, unassuming way, June let her know he felt the same. June quickly became an indispensable part of Angelina's life. Every morning, he would stand by the window, his tail wagging joyfully as she stirred awake. When Angelina worked from her desk, June settled beneath it, his head occasionally lifting to gaze at her with eyes full of quiet affection. His presence was steady, comforting, a silent reminder that she was never truly alone. Over time, Angelina came to realize that June was no ordinary dog. He was deeply attuned to her emotions, almost as if he could read her heart. On days when stress from work or waves of loneliness overwhelmed her, June would sense it. Without hesitation, he'd come to her side, resting his head on her lap or nudging her hand with his nose, urging her to pet him. His actions were simple yet profound, offering her a solace that words never could. It was as if his very being said, "I'm here for you. Always." It was a calm afternoon, and the golden hues of the setting sun filtered through the trees. Angelina sat beneath the shade of a large oak, engrossed in a novel. June lay nearby, his ears twitching at the soft rustle of leaves and the distant sound of children laughing. Everything seemed peaceful until, out of the blue, June stood up, his tail wagging enthusiastically. Without warning, he trotted off toward a man sitting on a bench nearby. "June!" Angelina called, startled by his sudden movement. But June paid her no mind. The Border Collie stopped a few feet from the man, Michael, and barked softly, a sound almost like a greeting. His tail swayed happily as if he had found an old friend. Michael looked up from his camera, chuckling at the unexpected visitor. He crouched down to meet June's level, scratching him gently behind the ears. "Well, aren't you a friendly one?" Michael said with a smile. By the time Angelina reached them, her face was flushed with a mix of embarrassment and amusement. "June, you can't just run up to strangers like that," she scolded gently, reaching for his collar. But Michael shook his head, still smiling. "No need to apologize," he said warmly. "He's a beautiful dog. Border Collies are something special." Angelina relaxed at his kind tone. "Thank you. I'm Angelina," she said, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Michael," he replied, extending a hand. Their conversation began effortlessly, as if they'd known each other far longer than just a few minutes. Angelina shared how she had adopted June from the shelter, and Michael listened intently, his eyes lighting up at the mention of the Border Collie's story. "I used to have a Border Collie when I was younger," Michael revealed. "Her name was Bella. She was my best friend." Angelina noticed the way his expression softened, tinged with nostalgia. "What happened to her?" she asked gently. Michael hesitated for a moment, then sighed. "Life happened. My family went through some tough times, and I had to leave for school far away. Bella stayed with my parents, but I wasn't there for her the way I wanted to be." He paused, his gaze distant. "I never thought about getting another dog. It felt too painful, like I was replacing her." June, as if sensing the shift in Michael's emotions, nudged his leg with his nose. Michael smiled down at him. "He's got great instincts, doesn't he?" Angelina nodded. "He always knows when someone needs comfort. That's part of what makes him so special." Their shared love for animals became the foundation of an unexpected friendship. Over the next few weeks, Angelina and Michael found themselves meeting at the park more frequently, their conversations growing deeper with each encounter. Michael would bring his camera, capturing candid moments of June in action, leaping through the grass, tilting his head curiously, or simply lying in the shade beside Angelina. One day, Michael showed her a photo he had taken. It was a striking black and white image of June sitting proudly on the hill, the sunlight forming a halo around his fur. "He's a natural model," Michael said with a grin. Angelina laughed. "He does have a way of stealing the spotlight." Michael's photographs became a way for Angelina to see June in a new light. Each image seemed to capture not just the dog's outer beauty, but the quiet wisdom and warmth he exuded. And through Michael's lens, Angelina began to notice something else. The way her own smile softened when she was with June, the light in her eyes when they played together. June seemed to sense the growing connection between Angelina and Michael, and he did everything he could to nurture it. He would tug insistently at his leash, leading Angelina toward Michael's usual bench. When they walked together, June often positioned himself between them, as if drawing them closer. Angelina couldn't help but laugh at her dog's antics. "It's like he's matchmaking," she said one afternoon. Michael chuckled. "Well, he's doing a pretty good job." Their laughter blended with the sounds of the park, and for a moment, everything felt perfect. Angelina looked at Michael, realizing how comfortable she felt around him, how his presence had become as reassuring as June's. Later that evening, as Angelina sat on the couch with June curled up beside her, she stroked his fur thoughtfully. "You're a little genius, you know that," she murmured. "I don't know what I did to deserve you, but I'm so glad I found you." June opened one eye, his tail wagging faintly in acknowledgement. As the weeks turned into months, Angelina and Michael grew closer, their lives intertwining in ways they hadn't expected. June remained at the center of it all, a steadfast companion and silent architect of their story. One day as they sat together at the park, Michael turned to Angelina. "Do you ever think about how different life would be without him?" he asked, nodding toward June, who was busy chasing a butterfly. Angelina smiled. "All the time. I went to that shelter looking for a dog, but what I found was so much more. June isn't just my pet, he's my family, my guide, my everything." Michael reached over, his hand brushing hers. "He's pretty incredible," he said softly. "But so are you." Angelina felt her cheeks flush, but she didn't pull her hand away. Instead, she looked out at June, who was now bounding back toward them, his eyes bright with joy. "Thank you," she said quietly, not just to Michael but to the dog who had brought them together. June barked once as if to say, "You're welcome." As days turned into weeks, Angelina found herself increasingly at ease around Michael. Their conversations were effortless, and their connection deepened with each shared moment. Yet, one curious thing lingered in her mind, June's behavior toward Michael. While June was affectionate with everyone, his bond with Michael seemed different, intense, almost as if there was an unspoken understanding between them. One afternoon, Michael visited Angelina at her home. As they chatted in the living room, Michael's gaze fell upon an old photograph resting on a side table. It was a picture of June, taken by the animal shelter before Angelina adopted him. In the image, June stood proudly with a silver collar around his neck, engraved with the name June. Michael froze, his face clouded with disbelief. "This collar," he murmured, picking up the photo. And his name, he trailed off, his mind clearly racing. Angelina tilted her head, confused by his reaction. What is it? Michael swallowed hard, holding the photo tightly. The border collie my family had, when I was a boy, his name was June too. He wore a collar just like this one. His voice grew softer. It can't be, but could it? As he began recounting memories of his childhood dog, Angelina listened intently. Every detail, June's mannerisms, his unique quirks, even the scar on his hind leg, matched perfectly with the dog she had adopted. Slowly, the truth began to emerge. The June standing beside her now was the same June Michael had loved as a child, separated from him by the twists of fate and years of hardship. The revelation was nothing short of miraculous. Angelina was stunned but also deeply moved. June wasn't just her faithful companion, he was a living link to Michael's past, a symbol of resilience and unconditional love. From that day on, Angelina cherished June even more. She marveled at the journey this remarkable dog must have taken to find his way back to Michael. Though she didn't fully understand how such a reunion was possible, she felt certain it was meant to be. However, alongside the joy of rediscovery came a sobering reality. June, now in his twilight years, was beginning to show signs of age. His movements grew slower, and his once bright eyes began to cloud. A visit to the veterinarian confirmed their fears. Years of hardship and old age were catching up to him. Angelina and Michael resolved to make the rest of June's life as joyful as possible. They spent their days taking him to his favorite places, the park where they'd met, the beach where he loved to chase waves, and even quiet evenings on the couch where he would lie between them, content just to be near them. As June's health declined, his presence became even more precious. When Angelina and Michael decided to marry, they knew the ceremony wouldn't feel complete without June by their side. Rather than hosting a grand celebration, they chose an intimate ceremony at the veterinary clinic where June was receiving care. The room was small but filled with warmth. Close friends and family gathered around, and June lay on a soft bed at the center, his tail thumping weakly as if he understood the significance of the day. Angelina and Michael exchanged vows, their hands clasped tightly as they promised to love and cherish each other, just as they had both loved and cherished June. As the ceremony concluded, June lifted his head, his eyes meeting theirs with an expression of deep contentment. It was as though he knew his mission was complete. He had reunited two souls and helped them find happiness together. Not long after the wedding, June passed away peacefully in his sleep, surrounded by the people who loved him most. His departure was a profound loss, but it was also a celebration of a life well lived, a life that had touched so many hearts. Angelina and Michael buried June beneath the oak tree in the park where they had first met. They marked the spot with a simple plaque that read, "June, the heart of our story." Though the loss was painful, June's memory remained a guiding force in their lives. His spirit seemed to linger in every corner of their home, in the photographs Michael had taken, and in the countless memories they had shared. Angelina often found herself sitting beneath the oak tree, reminiscing about the dog who had changed everything. "You were more than a dog, June," she would whisper. "You were our miracle." And as the seasons passed, Angelina and Michael carried June's legacy forward, always remembering the love and loyalty that had brought them together, a love that transcended time and loss. A few days after the wedding, June peacefully passed away in his sleep. The loss left a deep void in both Angelina and Michael's hearts, but they found solace in the knowledge that June had lived a full life, bringing love and light to those who needed it most. As they went through June's belongings, trying to navigate their grief, Angelina made a discovery. Hidden within the folds of June's old collar was a small piece of paper. It was a handwritten note, its shaky script clearly from a previous owner, now long gone. "June was the light in my darkest days. If you find him, love him, and let him bring that light into your life." Angelina's hands trembled as she read the words, tears slipping down her cheeks. June truly was the light in their lives, just as he had been for his previous owner. But now, with a heart full of love and gratitude, she and Michael knew they had a greater purpose, to spread that light to other forgotten souls, to the elderly dogs still waiting for a second chance. In honor of June's memory, Angelina and Michael established a fund to support the adoption of senior dogs in need. They named it June's Light. Their goal was simple but profound: to give other older dogs, often overlooked and forgotten, a chance to find love, just as June had found them. With the fund, they worked alongside shelters, spreading awareness about the importance of adopting senior dogs. They organized adoption events, donated supplies, and encouraged others to open their hearts and homes to those dogs who had lived long lives but had much more to give. One morning, as Angelina stood by the window, she spotted the stray cat June had once befriended, playing in the yard. A small smile crept across her face. June hadn't truly left them. His spirit lingered, woven into every act of kindness they now carried out. Each adoption, each rescued dog, was a way for them to continue June's legacy, to share the light he had given them. One quiet night, both Angelina and Michael had the same dream. In their dream, June was running freely through a lush, green field. His eyes shone with vitality, his fur catching the golden sunlight as he sprinted with joy. And then, he stopped. Turning back to look at them one last time, his tail wagging gently, as though he wanted to say, "Love and open your hearts. Love will lead you to all the best things." Angelina awoke with a soft gasp, feeling as if a weight had been lifted from her heart. There was peace now, a quiet reassurance that June was happy, running freely in a place where no pain or aging could touch him. And more importantly, he had left them with a message, a reminder that love was the greatest gift of all, and it was the key to everything good. As she lay beside Michael, she whispered softly, "He's still with us, isn't he?" Michael pulled her close, his voice thick with emotion. "In every dog we help, in every smile we share, June is with us." Though June was gone, the love he had given them, and the way he had changed their lives, would never fade. It would forever guide them, as they continued to open their hearts to the dogs who needed it most. With each passing day, Angelina and Michael found more meaning in their lives. They lived with purpose, carrying the light of June's love into the world, sharing it with every senior dog they could save and every person they could inspire to adopt. And so, June's journey continued, not just in the hearts of those who had known him, but in the lives of countless others who would be touched by the love and light he had left behind. What an inspiring and valuable lesson. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. See you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye for now.